Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the public, councillors, and welcome to this evening's Development Management Committee meeting. Going to move straight to the agenda, so apologies for the hardware, but no substitutions. Any declarations of interest?
A non-pecuniary interest as a top-up councillor.
And likewise, I've got a non-pecuniary interest as a top-up councillor.
And I've got non-pecuniary interest as a department registered councillor.
For item
For the
4.
one on 103.
We're close. Yeah. The minutes which appear on pages 3 and 4 of your agendas, are they agreed?
Three.
Thank you very much. Any matters arising?
No.
Thank you. Written questions, we have none. Moving to the procedure for the consideration of tonight's planning applications. We will start with the planning officer presenting a report on the application. We'll then have, at the chair's discretion, up to 3 people speaking for an application and up to 3 people speaking against an application. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes, followed by comments which have been invited from the applicant or agent, again giving a maximum of 3 minutes. Following that, debate from the floor will close and councillors will ask for questions and clarifications of officers and the developer potentially. We'll then move to officers responding and then councillors will debate each application and come to a decision. So moving to item 7 on the agenda, which is 43 to 56 Bushey Croft, which appear on pages 5 to 20 of your agenda papers. Mark, could you make a presentation?
This council application seeks planning permission for the development of 16 dwellings on land between Bushey Croft and Rushes Mead. The application site includes a hard standing area used for parking and the green space between the 2 residential areas, which is accessed via Torneys Road. Green Wedge is to the west of the site, which is everything west of there, and the primary school is to the east, which you can see in the top corner there. The dwellings would have 2 stories and be laid out as 5 terraces, shown as blue and green rectangles on this plan. The front of the site would continue to be used for parking in the form of 41 unallocated parking spaces. In addition, 32 spaces will be provided specifically for the new dwellings, which equals 2 for each dwelling. No trees would be lost as a result of this proposal, and additional landscaping and trees will be planted as part of a detailed landscape scheme. Part of the hedge running along the northern boundary of the site would be removed. However, this would enable a footpath to be created in and out of the site. So there is a hedgerow that runs across the majority of there, which is being taken out. This bit in green is being retained. It is considered that the loss of part of the hedge would be offset by the new landscaping and trees. In particular, the 6 trees shown within the centre of the site would create a local open space in accordance with the landscape principles of the town. It is considered that there is sufficient distance between the proposed dwellings and neighbouring properties not to cause unacceptable impacts on neighbouring amenity. No windows would be inserted into the gable ends of the dwellings, which would limit the amenity impacts, and this could be secured by a condition, and it's recommended. The design of the dwellings would be compatible with the design of surrounding properties, and there'd be clear new town characteristics such as strong gable ends, regular window layouts, and front canopies. You can see examples there. The existing access into the site is shown in this photo. The access would remain the same as existing. Concerns have been raised regarding highway safety, especially as the school is opposite. However, the Highway Authority have no objections with the proposal, and there are no grounds to differ from the conclusions reached by the highway experts. As already mentioned, unallocated parking would continue to be provided to the front of the site, and as indicated in the committee update which has been circulated, the council is willing to enter into discussions to reserve some of the parking spaces for school pick-up and drop-off. This photograph shows the green space to the rear of the site. An ecological survey was submitted that demonstrates that this area, which is mostly grassed, is of low ecological value. No protected species were recorded within the site or vicinity. One of the main concerns raised by local people is that the proposal will result in the loss of an open space. This space constitutes internal open space, but it is not considered that refusing the application for the loss of this space is appropriate, especially given that the dwellings will all be used as affordable housing. It's considered that the provision of 100% affordable housing significantly weighs in favour of the scheme and outweighs the loss of the open space, especially as the Barnmead playing field, which is designated as Green Wedge, can be used nearby to the west of the site. It is considered that the proposal is acceptable in principle and of a good new town design. Parking would continue to be provided, and although the proposal is located on green space, this concern is outweighed by the provision of the affordable housing. The application is therefore recommended for approval, subject to the conditions and the informative set out at pages 14 to 16 of the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. We have 3 speakers against this proposal, so if I could call Eleanor Scotchbrook forward first, please.
Chairman, can I tell us where they live?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind telling us where you live, and if you can turn the microphone on, press one of that one there. That's it.
Okay, I'm Eleanor Scotchbrook, I live at number 11 Rushesmead, which on this photo is out of shot, it's on the other side. I live there with my partner Lewis and our baby girl. We moved in just less than 2 years ago, and the fact that it was by this lovely open space was a major selling point for us. If we'd had any inkling that this plot was under consideration, we wouldn't have bought that property. But unfortunately it didn't show up on our searches at the time. The officer saying it won't impact neighbouring properties is just not true. On that plan, where those purple houses are in the middle and their gardens come down, that is our house to the side. So those 3 gardens will come directly onto the whole length of our back fence, plus the house at the front. Any privacy we have now will be completely lost. There'll be direct views into our little girl's bedroom, into our kitchen, into our living room, front and back. So obviously we'll be overlooked in a way that we are not at the moment. We're worried about extra noise and disturbance from these potential new neighbours. At the moment we are end of terrace, we have a neighbour next door, and the nearest house backing onto us is 2 garden lengths away, so these houses will be considerably closer. Also we'll lose our view. At the moment, if you look over our back garden fence, we can see wildlife and trees and greenery and blue sky, and we will see brick walls and people's roofs. Possibly more importantly, in terms of your deliberations, it will be bulldozing over a really valued open space for our local residents. Every day there's kids playing on that field, families walking their dogs, flying their kites, setting up their goalposts, playing run-outs. Every time I look out my window there's people using that field. To say it's only occasionally used for recreational purposes is completely untrue. And to suggest Barnmead as an alternative, I personally wouldn't let primary age child walk there unaccompanied, and especially not if the proposed busway that apparently is going to be put through that cycle track goes ahead. So I don't think Barnmead is particularly an appropriate alternative. In terms of highway safety, I don't know if you've ever been there at 8:45 in the morning or 3 o'clock in the afternoon during term time, but you cannot get in and out of that car park because of the school associated traffic. I urge you, if you haven't been there at those times, when the schools go back in September, just go and spend 15 minutes there. If you need to get in and out in an emergency, you have not got a chance. The highway report that I read suggested that the new homes, the traffic associated with them would not add to this problem because they'd walk their children to school. Would they not leave their houses at that time for any other purpose? I leave at that time to take my daughter to childcare. I don't have children at the school. Final point is, I don't believe that the site is identified in your local plan. What is the point of having a local plan if you're going to spend time and taxpayers' money investigating other sites that you have not even highlighted as a priority? This space is valued. It might not be designated as a green wedge, but I don't believe that that means it's not worthy of retaining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I call Nicholas Taylor next, please? Nicholas, you'll have 3 minutes.
Yep.
You can make the presentation. You also tell us where you live, that'd be great.
I live in Great Pardon and I'm the leader of the Harlow Alliance Party. Members of the committee, tonight marks an important crossroads for the future development of Harlow. You are being asked to approve an application to build homes on a site which was designated for recreational use by residents as part of the original Harlow Master Plan, and it's been used for this purpose for local parents and children for over 50 years. Harlow Council identified every potential house builder site across the town as part of its local plan work. It has provided no evidence base upon which it used to whittle this list to just 21 sites. The Bushey Croft site is not even on the local plan, and no information has been provided as to why this site should be developed. The report before you dismisses the depth of feeling that residents have about this plan, which states that the need for new housing outweighs the need for open spaces for children to play on safely. The Harlow Alliance Party and residents living near this site do not agree with that principle, which if adopted could see many green spaces in Harlow being subject to building proposals in the future. Time does not allow me to repeat the many valid points which have been made by residents in their submission to the Council. However, I would make the following points. The local plan pre-submission undertakes to protect wildlife and open spaces. The proposal before you tonight clearly flies in the face of that commitment. The report states that there are other play areas close by, and as a resident has recently just said, that's simply not the case. In recent years, residents have seen a reduction in the frequency of grass cutting on this playing field, which has enabled council officers to say that the field is not being used as often as it did in the past. There is clear evidence from talking to residents living in similar sites in other parts of the town, such as Deer Park, where this practice is becoming common. There, the grass is now 4 feet high and cannot be used for football like it did in the past. Harlow Council should be a beacon of good practice. It's carried out a consultation exercise with those living nearby. However, the comments made by residents were removed from the Council's website a few days after they were posted on it and have not reappeared, leaving just the positive comments from statutory agencies and others. HAP and residents would remind members that they are representatives of the local community and must take account of the views expressed by the latter, that this play area should not be built on. The reason it is there is just as valid today as it was 50 years ago. We believe most strongly that members should withdraw this application. We want to see you withdraw this application and give an undertaking that in the future this space will remain for children's play for the foreseeable future. Thank you, members.
Could I call John Curry next, please? John, again, you know the rules. Got 3 minutes.
Well, it's been a long time.
Yes, I'll see you again.
Good evening. John Curry, representing Harlow Civic Society, here objecting to this application. We were quite surprised at the temerity of the council coming forward to build on a beautiful green space. Yes, it doesn't have it's not green wedge, it's not green finger, it's called internal green space, but that doesn't mean to say that it's not used and enjoyed by the local people. And we find it very difficult to understand how Harlow Council could come forward with an application like this. It does not fill us with a great deal of confidence for the future. We've already had, in the past, green wedges built on which shouldn't have been built on, and now we're moving into our intermediate internal green spaces, and we find that very difficult to accept. You're closing the space between Bushey Croft and Rush's Mead. It will be a continuous development. There will be no space for recreation or any other activity. So, while we understand the need for more houses in Harlow, and at a loss now to consider building houses on this treasured site. So our main points are that this is a green recreational space. Harlow Council declares that it's the protector of the given principles of town planning, of which Harlow is the finest example. However, this is not the way to demonstrate that responsibility. Whilst applications of this nature are coming forward from the Council, given principles are under great threat, not least from the Council. Secondly, if the Council wishes to build more homes, and we would encourage that, whether as a council houses for rent or as homes for sale, there are plenty of brownfield sites that must be tackled first. They might be more challenging design-wise, but it's no use ignoring them. Within the Rush's Mead and Bushey Croft area, there are sites that could and should be developed. We would exclude from those the current car park site on Torneys Road opposite William Martin School, which serves the community as well as a car park in a very strategic location. We therefore recommend that this application be refused for all the right reasons, and in so doing, we hope that Harlow Council will understand that the residents of Harlow will not tolerate the loss of their valued recreational green spaces. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Curry. I'd now like to call Councillor Eugenie Hardy.
I'm sorry to have my back to you. Thank you. Before I speak in favour of the proposed development, I'd like to acknowledge the concerns raised and say that I understand from my own experience that the prospect of construction work, changes to the local environment and the inconvenience potentially caused by these are things that none of us want on our doorstep. Nevertheless, as any resident who purchased a property in the vicinity of the proposed development and who looked at the land registry will know, this land does not have any designations or protections, and as such it was always a possibility that it would be developed. And frankly, it is in everyone's best interest that the development is undertaken by the council rather than by a private developer, which was another possible outcome. For example, under the council's controls, a highly valued parking area which fronts onto Torneys Road and which is crucial to school pick-up and drop-offs can be improved and enhanced with a new configuration and restrictions which mean that although the number of spaces will be reduced, the area can be more effectively utilised and will no longer be an eyesore on the local environment. In the hands of a private developer, this parking area could have been completely lost. Regarding the loss of land for recreational purposes, as a mother of a young son, I was keen to understand exactly what this would mean, and so I visited the area this morning and walked the distance from 46 Rush's Mead, the property which borders the proposed development, to the Mead Sports Field, which has a children's playground and is located just on the other side of the cycle path which runs along the bottom of Rush's Mead and Bushey Croft and into town. The walk took me 3.5 minutes. There is not time for me to address each objection individually. However, I will say that having spoken to officers and those responsible for developing the scheme, I am satisfied that each and every one of the objections falls within current planning legislation and or is addressed through this scheme. I would like to conclude by reminding us all of the serious housing need in Harlow. We have 4,000 units on our housing register, and that horrible impersonal term unit may refer to a family of 5. In one sense, 16 new houses is a drop in the ocean. But if you consider that each of these houses, which will be council rented and therefore affordable and properly regulated, will accommodate a family of, say, 4, then we are actually talking about more than 60 people whose lives will be transformed as a result of getting out of accommodation which is unsuitable, most likely because it is too small. This in turn will free up housing for others. For example, an elderly widow who wants to downsize, freeing up his or her 3-bedroom home for another family. And so it goes on, breaking up a logjam and creating the possibility of better and more suitable housing for potentially hundreds of local residents. I appreciate this is very difficult to hear and these are sensitive issues, and I will not be popular for the things I have said. But I do not believe, in the face of the housing need in Harlow, the objections presented to the panel should rule out this development.
Thank you, Councillor Harley. Right, councillors. Oh, sorry, the agent. I do apologise. Jumping the gun, moving to questions. Mark Bottom, the agent.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Before I address this particular application, I apologise, I have three in front of you this morning, so I'll try and make it short and sweet so it doesn't become like Groundhog Day for you. My name is Mark Cotton, and I'm a chartered architect based at Harlow Mill in Harlow, and I'm speaking as agent for the applicant, Harlow Council. As you've just heard, this particular proposal in front of you today is for 16 new affordable houses to be built and owned by the council on a site located between Bushey Croft and Rush's Mead, and the planning officer is recommending approval, with a condition which would ensure that these properties remain affordable. As you know, Harlow is in desperate need of such properties, and whilst the provision of affordable family homes through developer contributions has the potential to make some contribution, all too often these properties fail to materialise or lie outside of the council's ownership. The proposed development represents a good use of land, creating much needed and well designed affordable housing in an attractive setting, whilst formalising the casual parking provision at the front of the site, making it safer and easier to manage. There have, as you've heard, been a number of objections, and I would like to take a minute or two to talk to those. Clearly, any development of this nature will result in additional vehicular movements, and it would be foolish of me to suggest otherwise. The proposed homes have appropriate levels of parking, and the scheme has been specifically designed to ensure that the parking area at the front of the site is retained and upgraded, so that vehicles which park on this land at present are not displaced onto the highway network. This decision was made in part because we recognise that there are existing concerns around highway safety in the area, and in particular around the school, a situation which is actually a direct result of the school having inadequate parking and drop-off facilities. We note that probably the most emotive objections have been concerned with the loss of open space and greenery along the northern boundary. These proposals would result in the loss of an open space. However, the space in question is not designated for formal sports or recreation, and there are a large number of green open spaces which are readily accessible in close proximity, and adjacent properties all benefit from very generous rear gardens, providing safe amenity space for their occupants. The site is not in the green wedge, nor is it a green finger, both of which are important landscape features within the master plan. Some occupants of properties in Bushey Croft have rear gate access, and we want them to be able to continue to use their gates in a safe manner, especially given that the proposed access road would run along that boundary. The partial removal of the hedge, which is considered to be of low value ecologically, will ensure that these people walking out of their gates can do so safely, and additional planting of higher ecological value will be introduced to compensate for the loss. All the dwellings have been designed to meet or exceed the space standards promoted in the Harlow Design Guide, despite these standards not being compulsory, and each has been designed to meet standard M42 of approved document M of building regulations, which means that they can be adapted to suit the requirements of those with disabilities in the future. To conclude, we believe that this development is worthy of your support. Not only is it well designed, it also provides much needed council-owned affordable family homes, and provides the opportunity to address the somewhat ad hoc parking arrangements at the front of the site. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. We will now move to questions. Councillors, any questions to kick off? Nobody? Councillor Edwards.
Just two questions, really. One, I just want clarity from the officers that has there ever been any designation of this land for recreational space? At any time, under the new towns or under. My second question relates to the parking area, because I understand that although there's additional parking for those individual houses, there's potentially some loss of parking for the wider community use. And I just want to understand the rationale, because I walked that site the other day, and looking at it, you can get approximately, I would think, approaching 60 vehicles on that site as it currently is at the moment, and come down by a number. And I just want the rationale for the car parking space in that area.
So the land isn't designated for any recreational leisure purposes. Some of the other parcels of land on the council's proposal map does actually say playing field, things like that. This doesn't have any of that on it. In terms of the parking to the front of the site, the amount of land is roughly the same. The rationale here is that instead of there being just an area of hardstand that doesn't have any spaces marked out and has changes in levels because of the garages that used to be there, this will be fit for purpose with spaces that are marked out specifically to the Essex preferred parking standards. So although you may be able to squeeze more cars on there, if there's no lines, and that's just as close as residents feel that they want to get to another car, in this circumstance they're actually fit for purpose, they're to standard sizes, so they'll be more usable, more practicable.
Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted a clarification what the agent said about the hedge. The hedge is being removed on the northern part of the site, but being replaced by some trees. I'm not quite sure where he means.
So the hedge at the moment runs, you see the green there, that more or less extends all the way to the main road. So half of it's being taken out from roughly there to around there somewhere. That bit's coming out because there's things like rear accesses there for the properties to the north. And obviously it provides a good pedestrian footway for the new residents as well. But a fair amount of the hedge is actually being retained there. The replacements, it's going to be detailed in a specific scheme, so indicatively showing things like 6 trees in the middle of the site. But there's a condition that means that we'll get the specific sorts of plant mix and heights, things like that, at a later stage.
In regard to the car park, is there a possibility of having another exit or entrance into that car park? Is that something that could be looked at? Because there were people saying it was difficult to get in and out. On the first lady that spoke was saying it's difficult to get out at school time.
For this proposal, the access is proposed to be the same as it is at the moment. That's not to say that another access couldn't work, but that's not the proposal that's in front of us. This is a proposal that's been passed the Highway Authority, and they're saying that this works in this format. Quite possibly having another access so close to that existing one, it could create more trouble. We wouldn't know without the Highway Authority's input.
I think it would also potentially reduce the amount of parking spaces available.
And trees to the front of the site.
Any more questions? Mr. Garner?
I think it's a question, it's probably a comment as well, but I'll try and restrict it to a question. This is undesignated land, if I understand, is that correct? So it's not designated for housing, it's not designated for a play area, but it's used as a play area, and the residents get used to use it as a play area. Does that allow the council, I suppose is the question, to develop any piece of green land that is not at the moment designated? That includes this, so they have carte blanche to develop it.
Each proposal is looked at separately. Anything that's public space that isn't designated for a specific purpose, like green wedge, is classed as internal open space. In terms of other proposals, it would be weighing them against the policies. We have a clear policy that supports infill schemes, and that has to be weighed against the loss of the open space. In this circumstance as well, there's 100% affordable housing which gets added into the mix. And obviously in this circumstance we think that approving it is the right decision to make. That doesn't necessarily mean that other pieces of land that are undesignated would automatically have the right to be built on.
More questions? Debate then. Let's lead off. Councillor Garner.
Probably won't be popular, but never mind. I have great sympathy with the local residents. They've got a nice green area, so played on and used for many, many years. Some of the lady there moved there perhaps because it was there, and now she finds herself fronting a building site and 16 houses. I'll say here, and I did mention it, we talk about social mix. We're here, we've got 16 affordable housing. That is not social mix. I know we need social housing, but we also need houses for other people that can afford a certain level of mortgage, but not for cost of other places. So I find that I personally disagree with, probably as my politics are on the other side. But my main problem is that undesignated land in Harlow is now in the line of this council for development. Come what may with regard to local residents had it use over a number of years. There has to be a time when we have to stop building. We can't fill every green space in Harlow with houses, be they needed or not. We still need green areas for our children to grow up on, for it to look nice. We can look out here, it's nice. So that's protected out there because it's opposite the town centre. Why? Why not build on that? Yeah. But you've got these residents here who, particularly have got a problem here. Old Harlow is surrounded now by houses, new houses. You know, in the end, in 20 years' time, it'll probably be 4,500, 5,000 houses. That's ruining a whole area of Harlow. This ruins a small part of Harlow. And I'm sorry I'm emotional on this, but you have to stop sometime. And I know there are no planning grounds to refuse it. We can only ask the council to withdraw the application, and they're not likely to do that. So we are stuck with it. And I just warn the rest of the town that over the next few years this is going to happen again and again.
Thank you, Chair. I totally sympathise with the residents, I really do. But as a council, we are committed to putting in housing for the residents of the future. A lot of young people can't afford to buy housing right now, it's just impossible. They're coming up immediately. These are giving them a chance, when they get to that stage, to have council housing for themselves. We have designated green areas. We're proud of that in Harlow. We're known for that in Harlow. We've got space 3.5 minutes away from this site. We are losing, through developers, social housing applications in amongst the private enterprise. We've been doing that for quite a long time now. We are losing that social housing. We need that social housing, and if the only way that we can get it at this stage is through building our own as an obligation to the town for the future and everything that's coming into it, we've got to put these houses in where we can. They're in small amounts. We've got them on First Avenue near Markle School. We're very proud of those. We've got to put them in because there are families that I know of that would give their eye teeth for a council house. Are we going to say we're not going to make them for them? How can we say that as a council? We are obligated to put housing in, decent accommodation that looks extremely good from the outside. It serves a purpose of the future generations, and that is an obligation we need and have to pick up as a council. But we have to balance it out with the green that we've got. But we are going forward. And as Freddie Gibbard built the town, he was thinking of the green spaces. We're not destroying those. We really are not. But we've got to think the way he felt, that people count. And we need to serve those people as a council, as everybody here has had their own houses, whichever way they've got them. We are still obligated in the future. I recommend this application. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Holden. Councillor Clark.
Yes, all I can do is echo that really. I do agree. I'm very torn on the loss of the open green space and do worry about that tremendously. We cannot regard that as a precedent for the future though and generalise across the whole town. But this is one particular opportunity, and it is an opportunity that the council has taken, and when it comes to it, you've got these two almost irreconcilable options. Keep it open, green space, or 100% affordable housing. And I think I agree with the argument used at the end by the officers that ultimately it becomes a question, as Maggie said, of affordable housing, which is in huge demand. If we ask anybody on the waiting list, they will definitely say, please, if this is an opportunity where you can provide 100% affordable housing, then please let me have a house. And that's the shortage, that's the options we've got. And I'm afraid that I do fall down, which is not going to be popular, but I fall down on the side of the affordable housing.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Anybody else? Councillor Davis.
I'm going to support this because, like all councillors, our mailboxes are full of people trying to get housing. We've got people living in office blocks that shouldn't be in office blocks. That's a government problem there. We've got younger generations. I've got children. I'm never going to get a house at the rate things are going to go at the moment. So I think it's give the opportunity for people to get housing, decent housing, also to tidy up the front of that car park, because that looks an eyesore when you drive past there. And I went there today and see all the rubbish that was tipped there. I've got concerns. I've got sympathy for the residents that are having their circumstances change, but the overall consideration is provide more housing for people that are in decent need.
Anybody else?
Can I just bring in the working hours?
Yes, you can.
Close them out. Unless anybody else is... Yeah, can I just talk... number 7, the condition, the hours of work. 7 o'clock in the morning, most people are, obviously not most people, but they're still in bed. Children are asleep until 7 o'clock at night. I feel the hours are long. I understand part of the reason that, the sooner if we extend the hours, we get it done quicker. But we're only talking about perhaps half an hour, and that I think is infinite small. So I would recommend that they start at say 7:30 until, and I'll go to 6:30 at night. I don't know if anybody is opposed to it. We'll second that. I will second it.
Okay. Right, so 7:30 to 6:30 for access to the site. Okay, in that case, if we can move to vote on that recommendation, members. All those in favour of Councillor Garnett's recommendation? That is unanimously carried. Therefore, we'll then move to the vote on the amendment to the recommendations on pages 14 to 16 to include those amendments on time on site. All of those in favour? That is unanimous and carried. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, anybody that came just for that item, you're welcome to stay for the rest of the evening, but if you feel that you want to go, you'll be welcome to go now. Right.
Do you live around our area? None of you. Try living in the noise and all the acid yourselves like we've got up with.